So can a child commit, on both sides, can a child commit sin before knowing right from wrong?
Yeah, I think if a child punches another kid in the face and doesn't realize that there's a consequence to that or that's wrong, it's still wrong. The fact that the other kid is hurt is the consequence of the sin that occurred. And it's that very consequence that teaches the kid, oh, this is wrong. It caused hurt to another person. So yeah, absolutely children can sin, but they learn from the consequences of their actions in the same way that adults do.
I would even make the distinction that children can commit sinful acts, but they're not accountable for that sin. For instance, Deuteronomy 139 talks about how the children who are too young to know right and wrong or good and evil, they still enter the promised land. So can a child steal something? Yes. Are they guilty of stealing? No, because they're not accountable for that sin. Even Isaiah 7:19 talks about how a child can be at a point where they're too young to choose the good from the bad. So I just think the distinction between committing a simple act and being guilty of sin is really, really, really important here.
So speaking of sin, do you believe on both sides that if we don't follow your particular religion or faith, that we would go to hell?
So from my upbringing and my understanding of the Quran, no. There's a verse in chapter 2, verse 62 that says, Christians, Jews, believers, anyone who believes in God, believes in the day of judgment, and does good on earth has no fear, and God will reward them in the hereafter.
Well, I would just want to say, like, what if I don't believe in the Quran? So does that put me in a place where I am going to hell on your view?
No, because the verse doesn't say you have to believe in the Quran. It says you have to believe in God and believe in the day of judgment and do good on earth.
But Christians, you wouldn't be considered a Christian if if they were to believe in your God. So you see what I'm getting at? Because Christians are people the word Christian is a follower of Christ. In other words, a person that believes in the triune God, a person who serves the triune God. So how can you be called a Christian, but then serving Allah? Doesn't make sense, and that means you're not a Christian. So where do we bridge that gap?
I guess it differs on opinions because from my perspective, it's the same God.
Just to answer the question, so for the Christian perspective, we believe that if you don't profess Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, worship the triune God, there is a place of separation that has been prepared for those who don't acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God. I would say where we defer, and maybe you guys can give more commentary on some of the passages in the Quran, but I know that Surah 749 talks about beheading, slicing the necks of those who don't believe on the day of war. And just talk about this idea of jihad, because I feel like there are so many people who practice Islam who do persecute